Now that we're on to the S25 Ultra and the S25 series in general, I wanted to take a look back at the Galaxy S21 Ultra and see how it's holding up here in 2025. It's been a little over 2 years since I've checked this phone out, so why do I think it's peak Ultra? I'm gonna get the tech guy, and let's find out. To start off, I'd like to speak on the pricing of the Galaxy S21 Ultra. The S21 Ultra can be had for around $275 for 12GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. And while that may not be a lot of storage nowadays, the Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL still come with a base of 128GB for around $1,000 and $1,100 MSRP. So when you put that into consideration, a phone that's more modern and more recent, which does kind of stack up processor-wise, so I like the comparison there. This actually comes with more RAM than you would actually think. A lot of these phones came with 8GB of RAM at the time, and they came out with 12. And now we have reached 256GB of base storage on most modern smartphones, along with like the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra and above. We have 256GB of storage with that. We have 128GB here, and that is a little bit low, like I said, but for the most part, I think that the price matches up with what kind of phone you're getting. And the S21 Ultra is quite a phone. Right away, I wanted to talk on build quality. The build quality of the Galaxy S21 Ultra is, simply put, beautiful. I love how this one feels in the hand and how it looks in the light when the light catches it at this matte black finish. I was with it with MKBHD where he said matte black all the things, because I wholeheartedly believe we should also do that as well. And the build quality proves that through and through, and with the titanium jet black that you could get online only for the S25 Ultra, my girlfriend managed to pick one of those up, and I think it looks really impressive here if you put it up against the S21 Ultra's build. It really brings me back to that build quality, and that's really awesome because I think this is peak build quality from Samsung. I liked the little cutout that they had for the cameras and how it really slid into the side of the body, and just how the rails are all dark, and the whole thing is just really great put together, and there's a lot of thought put into this. Like MKBHD said back in his video on the S21 Ultra, he feels like this is an MKBHD phone, and it really is because it has top-notch specs, it's got wonderful cameras even here, and it just looks beautiful. In the hand, it feels really, really solid and weighty. It is a bit weightier feeling than even the Galaxy S25 Ultra is, so that's really interesting to me, is that it just feels like more of a brick, but it's more substantial in the hand, and it really does feel every bit as premium as it looks, and I think that's really awesome. It feels like a solid weighty device, and most people are going to enjoy that, and especially when we kind of take that price into consideration again, $275 for what you're getting here in a package of a build quality is well above what the mid-range is offering. I mean, you're getting a flagship tier quality, style backing, rails, front display, everything encompassed here is top tier, and not at a top tier price now. And it was even really good when it was $430 back in 2023 when I last reviewed this device. Now we're getting it for $275. That's awesome. Like, this is every bit as premium as you think it would feel in the hand. Obviously, you'd want to get a case for this bad boy because, I mean, it's glass and it's a little slippery, and the curves kind of accentuate that, like you feel like you're going to drop it and maybe possibly break the display, but a case would be handy. But for the most part, when you're looking at this device, just with no case on it, it's beautiful. It's probably one of my favorite looking devices of the last few years, and it's only from 2021, so I mean, obviously, I feel like we're halfway through the decade at this point, and 2021 seems like forever ago, but at the same time, it was so close, and when you think about it, it looks timeless, especially with that display. You're getting an AMOLED display on this device, you're getting it all the way at Quad HD, and 120Hz LTPO, so there's a lot to be loved here, and I think that their color reproduction is even amazing on this device here, and it doesn't shout that it's old, because it really doesn't feel like an old device. It feels every bit as premium, like I said, as any of the modern flagships do. The bezels are a little bit deceiving because obviously the top and bottom are going to be off, but they did curve the sides, so it almost feels a little bit more futuristic in my opinion, and it is a very beautiful display. It's really fast refresh rate, like I said. It's got beautiful colors, very punchy, very vibrant. There's a lot of contrast because of that AMOLED display. So when you take all of that into consideration for the build quality, the Galaxy S21 Ultra is awesome, and I would definitely recommend it for $275 here in 2025 for you guys to go ahead and pick up if you don't want to spend a lot of money and get a really great built device It's amazing in that category, so it is a go for me. Next, I wanted to touch on experience of the Galaxy S21 Ultra. And here is where it also holds up pretty well. I mean, I have a OnePlus 7T Pro McLaren edition that has a Snapdragon 855 Plus and it's from 2019. And that device feels really speedy even here in 2025 for me. And so for most day-to-day tasks and even some gaming, I think that it holds up tremendously well with that device. So imagine what the S21 Ultra is capable of. I mean, it really is a brilliant experience through and through with the 12 gigabytes of RAM, and you're also getting the Snapdragon 888, which does get a little warm when you game occasionally. I haven't seen any major drops in frames when I was playing Fortnite or anything of that nature, so when we're talking about the experience, it's definitely held up in every category that we can really imagine in terms of speed and fluidity. Opening up apps, switching apps, keeping apps in memory. It has no struggles with that, and it can play games with ease, like I was saying. You can play Fortnite, you can play Call of Duty Mobile, you could play Subway Surfers, you can play Jetpack Joyride, you can play any game on this thing, and you're not going to really be upset that you're doing that. Obviously, this isn't a top-tier gaming phone, and if you're doing really extreme long Genshin Impact gaming sessions, obviously your phone's going to heat up quite a bit, and maybe it may stutter and drop some frames. But if you're not really a gamer, but you do like to play Fortnite or you like to play Call of Duty Mobile, which are a little higher end titles, I think you could get away with this easily. This whole thing, from the experience of the speed and the fluidity of this device, it's just snappy day to day. It opens up apps with a breeze. You can browse TikTok, you can go on your social media, you can do whatever you want to on this device, and I don't think that you're going to get a watered down experience from what you even experienced from the Galaxy S25 Ultra. Yes, the Galaxy S25 Ultra is pretty speedy in its own right, and it does feel instantaneous when you're opening up apps. It does keep them in memory really well, and it is extremely efficient. But when we consider the price difference here, where you're getting a $1,300 device or a $1,200 off device, around $300, even $275, that's an impressive feature set in the speed and fluidity and experience department that I think a lot of people would be super happy with. And that's why this is probably one of the best priced devices right now, in my opinion, is because in most categories, it's meeting expectations or surpassing expectations. So when you put everything together in that package for the experience, I think it holds up so good here in 2025, and you would be hard pressed to find anything that could really give the S21 Ultra a run for its money in terms of what it can do. Benchmarks are what everybody talks about, and sure, the benchmarks on the S21 Ultra versus the benchmarks on the S25 Ultra are going to be immensely different on paper. But this device is greater than the sum of its parts and what you see on a piece of paper or in a digital format on a benchmark. This device does any and everything you ask of it with ease. You can even video edit if you want to. There's all sorts of different things that you can do on this device, and it still runs Samsung DeX like the S25 Ultra does, so you can run this in a computer mode if you really truly wanted to. You can do wireless DeX to a TV, a Roku device, you can plug it in via HDMI to your monitor, and you can hook it up via Bluetooth to your keyboard and mouse, and it can be a full laptop or a desktop setup if you really, really want it to be. When you look at it all encompassed, the S21 Ultra is a definite go in the experience department for me, hands down, when it comes to speed and fluidity, opening apps, browsing social media, even playing games, doing any of those intensive tasks that you ask of it day in, day out. It's definitely gonna get the job done when it comes to experience. Next, we're gonna talk about cameras on the device. And the S21 Ultra's cameras are actually really, really good here into 2025. Like, they do err on a more blown out exposure when it comes to highlights, and I do understand where they're trying to bring up the shadows and kind of give you a more bright photo, and that seems to be what wins on social media most of the time. Is the most bright and vibrant photo wins, and for me, to my eyes, I think that I actually prefer that as well. The Galaxy S25 Ultra does spit out better dynamic range in most scenarios, but there is a dullness to the pictures that almost doesn't showcase here in the S21 Ultra. So for me, the cameras are almost as good as the modern flagships are, with the exceptions of like the Vivo series of devices, with the exception of the Oppo devices and all those cameras that are like 1-inch type sensors or even close to that. Yes, the S21 Ultra can't compete as good with those devices, but when we're talking about over here in Western society, yes, you are going to see a very minimal difference when it comes to these pictures. Your regular wide shots look pretty good. I think they have decent dynamic range. There's definitely detail to be had in most of the shadows and the highlights when it comes to seeing it in the wide angle camera because that's the best 108 megapixel camera lens for you to actually get a really decent photo out of it, even if it is binning down to 12 megapixels. You're still seeing really great solid photos out of this main camera. And even the telephoto camera, when you zoom in and you're doing it digitally, I think it handles and holds up really well with its super zoom going all the way to 100 times. You still see a decent amount of detail, and a lot of the processing that you see here due to Samsung's processing, especially in One UI 6.1, this is definitely a solid camera all in all when you use any of its lenses. Even that ultra wide shoots out some pretty respectable images, and I think you would be really hard pressed to find any major detail discrepancies as opposed to maybe a Galaxy S25 Ultra. Even though it has a newer sensor on the ultra wide, I haven't seen much of a huge difference between the two, in my opinion, with testing the S25 Ultra as my daily driver and going back to the S21 Ultra for this experience. So when you look at all of that as a whole, I think the camera set is really great when it comes to wide, ultra wide, and telephoto photos. So yes, the camera here in 2025 is a major go in my opinion. Next, we're going to talk about battery life. And if there's any indication of this phone's not so up-to-date specs, it's the battery. The battery itself is 5,000 milliamp hours, which has been the same all the way up to even the S25 Ultra here, while other phones are moving on to 6,000, even 7,000 milliamp hours. But for the most part, that's where you're gonna see the most of its old life shine through, and especially if you're buying something that's not refurbished and used, you're definitely gonna see some battery degradation here in 2025. So if you get it refurbished, obviously you'll get a much newer battery and a much nicer battery, so it will be more like new if you purchase it that way at the $275 on Amazon for the refurbished program. But when you consider what you're getting out of it, it is about a day's use. I've seen it's definitely like will die really quickly if you're doing a lot of intensive things like gaming or taking a lot of video or photos. So keep that in mind, that obviously if you're just doing the basic tasks, it's gonna last you all day. And sometimes you may have to top up before the end of the day, but for the most part, the battery life is okay. It's probably my least favorite thing on this device is the battery life, and I said that in my last video too, is it didn't hold up even when I was testing it 2 years ago. So when it comes to my device here, the battery drains really quickly. I expect that you wouldn't have the exact same experience because you'd be getting something more new, but still with the device itself, you are seeing that the battery life on this one, it does leave a little bit to be desired when it comes to full usage throughout a whole day, and you're not going to see 2 days out of this device, which is fine. I think for the most part, it puts up a respectable fight for battery life throughout the day anyway, and it does charge at up to 45 watts, which is still impressive here because, again, they're still doing that with the S25 Ultra, so they haven't really done a crazy amount since then. They just pretty much brought the build quality back to form with the S21 Ultra. I think that's the closest model, especially with that titanium jet black, like I said, in the build quality department. But when it comes to the battery life, you're definitely going to notice a difference between the S21 Ultra and the S25 Ultra. It's just going to be better, and this one is okay at best. So the battery life is kind of a go here in 2025, but not fully a go. So overall, when we speak on the Galaxy S21 Ultra, this device is an amazing pickup in my opinion. $275 gets you a whole heck of a lot of phone, and I don't think that you'd be that upset if you went and bought this refurbished right now and picked up a 45 watt charger on the side for an additional like 20 bucks. Throw that in the bin, throw this in the bin, get yourself a really nice phone, especially if you're coming from something mid-range or coming from something pretty old. This is definitely a good choice and can last you kind of far into the future because it is going to get One UI 7. It's definitely going to be able to be faster with animations, and that Home Up app updated to the One UI 7 so you can get quicker animations and all that stuff. It's going to get all that goodness packed into this like the S25 Ultra, and maybe, who knows, battery life may be better on One UI 7 as well. Maybe they did some optimization on the software level to help there as well. So when you see that eventually come out for this device, they've obviously had some really huge issues with the update cycle, especially with even the Galaxy S24 Ultra series, so be on the lookout for that. But this device here, overall, a great recommendation, where the battery life is the only thing that's subpar on it. The rest of it is quite the phone, from cameras, build quality to experience. You're going to enjoy everything out of this phone. So if there's a phone you want to pick up for real cheap online at this time, there's really not much of a competition here. It's this device here, the Galaxy S21 Ultra. So yeah, you can take my word with a grain of salt, but at the end of the day, I definitely want to recommend this device to most people out there who are looking for something this inexpensive, who really want top tier specs and top tier cameras and experience in general. They go for this here. But like I said, you can take my word with a grain of salt. Put it in the comments below if there's a better phone in your opinion. I would love to hear it. And that's it, guys. This is the end of the video. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you dislike this video, hit the dislike button. And if you really like this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get more content from me. And as always, I'm Megan the Tech Guy, and I'm out. Peace.